Okay, folks, it is 6 o'clock. The May 19, 2021 Volusia Forever Advisory Committee listening session is now in order. If we could have the roll call, please, Ms. President.
Marianne Connors is not with us. Wanda Van Dam.
Here.
Steve Crump is online. Gerald Fieser. Here. John Gamble.
Here.
Jessica Gow is absent. Derek LaMontagne is with us online. Derek Orberg.
Here.
And Susan Schreiber.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. My name is Wanda Van Dam. On behalf of the board, we would like to welcome everyone that is here. And we are going to start this meeting like we have started the last 4 meetings, which is with a video that has been put together by staff. It is a very informative video and it contains a lot of information. So if we could start with that, please.
Good evening and welcome to our Volusia Forever program. My name is Ginger Adair and I am the Environmental Management Director for Volusia County. And I will be taking us through a series of slides about the existing Volusia Forever program to help us understand how we should move forward with the new program. We're going to talk mostly this evening about the existing Forever program, but I want to take 1 minute to talk about the 2020 referendum. Voters were asked in November of 2020 to approve a program that included an ad valorem tax of 1/5 of a mil for 20 years. That is projected to raise $179 million over those 20 years. It permits bonding in an amount not to exceed $60 million. The purpose is to finance acquisition and improvement of environmentally sensitive water resource protection, forests and farmlands, and outdoor recreation lands. It requires full public disclosure through an annual audit. This referendum was approved by 75.6% of Volusia County voters, which is why we're here this evening to talk to the citizens about how the program will move forward. The County Council adopted a resolution numbered 2021-11 that established the Volusia Forever Advisory Committee. The purpose of that committee is to oversee the review of proposed acquisitions and make recommendations to the County Council, to review applications to ensure that requests meet the objectives, the criteria, the procedures, and the guidelines of the program, to periodically review program procedures, guidelines, and criteria for acquiring property, to oversee the review of those proposed acquisitions and improvements for consistency with the intent and the goals of the program, assess the program priorities and recommend a ranking of properties, make recommendations regarding participation in federal, state, and district grant programs, review and/or assess the land acquisition, water resource protection, forests and farmlands, and outdoor recreation needs of the county, and make recommendations on how Volusia Forever can address them, and to recommend further evaluation of properties through resource assessments. Resolution 2021-11 establishes membership of the Forever Advisory Committee. Members serve 2 terms that expire on March 31st of odd-numbered years. If any member fails to attend 2 meetings during any calendar year, the seat is deemed vacant. The committee shall conduct an annual goal-setting workshop to outline its work program for the year and will make an annual report to the County Council on accomplishments and review the annual program audit reports. The role of county staff. County staff are here to support the advisory committee, to provide an eligibility evaluation report for all nominated properties, to communicate with property owners, other acquisition partners, and regulatory agencies, to present committee recommendations to the County Council and inform the committee members of County Council actions, and to negotiate acquisition contracts. The land nomination and review process. The program shall accept nominations from any governmental entity, conservation organization, corporation, or individual for any land within Volusia County. The committee or the staff may also nominate lands. Lands shall be evaluated on a first-come, first-served basis. Staff may establish a nomination cycle and deadlines. Nominations shall be submitted on an application form not to exceed 10 pages. Staff will perform an initial review based on the established criteria, including a site visit. And staff will prepare a draft property evaluation report and provide it to the property owner or representative for review, and then to the committee for evaluation. Priorities for acquisition. In the current program, priorities are properties on the Water Management District 5-year acquisition plan, completion of projects begun under previous acquisition programs, additions to existing conservation lands, properties that enhance corridors and connectivity, properties of significant size to achieve meaningful conservation objectives, and properties facing imminent loss to development. The Volusia Forever program has established site ranking criteria. There are 18 primary criteria that are grouped into 6 groups. The first group is proximity and connectivity. Second is furtherance of acquisition efforts. Third is water resources. Fourth, environmentally sensitive lands. Fifth is provision of resource-based recreation lands. And sixth is management requirements. There are also 3 enhancement criteria. To be eligible for acquisition, a site must meet 10 of the 18 primary criteria. To be eligible for a conservation easement, a site must meet 5 of the criteria. I'll go through each of the site ranking criteria by group. The first group is proximity and connectivity. The criteria are, is the property functionally adjacent to existing conservation land, either a conservation easement or in public ownership, or a Volusia Forever eligible property? Will the acquisition maintain the ecological link or habitat corridor between 2 or more otherwise unconnected existing conservation lands, either conservation easements or public ownership? The second group is furtherance of acquisition efforts. Those criteria are, will the acquisition further a project begun under previous or existing governmental land acquisition programs? And based upon a preliminary assessment, for example, partnership experience, property size, location, and features, is there a reasonable expectation of matching funds from other sources to assist in the acquisition? Water resources. Does the property serve an important groundwater recharge function? Does the property contain or have frontage upon a water body, wetlands, or waterway? Does the property contain springs and/or other unique geologic features? And does the property have the potential for water resource development, for example, potable water development? Environmentally sensitive lands. The criteria are, is there the potential that acquisition of the property will protect or maintain populations of any federal or state listed species, including but not limited to endangered, threatened, or species of special concern, which may typically be expected to occur on the property? Does the property contain viable acreage of 1 or more scarce, unique, or other significant upland communities? And will the acquisition protect fragile coastal resources? Does the property provide resource-based recreation lands? And the criteria is, does the property offer the potential for the establishment or enhancement of resource-based public use opportunities, including greenways, blueways, and trails? Management. Is the size and location of the property appropriate for cost-effective management? Does the property have a limited amount of exotic or invasive species? Is the pattern of existing and potential future land use of the area adjacent to the property compatible with typical land management practices? Is there appropriate access to the property? Is the percentage of water bodies or wetlands requiring restoration minimal? And is the percentage of uplands requiring restoration minimal? This is the enhancement criteria that are established. Does the property likely contain significant historical, archaeological, and/or cultural resources? Does the property have the potential for providing significant opportunities for education and/or scientific research? Does the acquisition of the property substantially further the conservation goals and management objectives of the Volusia Forever program? The committee review and prioritization process is as follows. At an open public meeting, the committee shall divide properties into two groups: properties eligible for further consideration and properties that are not eligible based on the established criteria. No less than twice each year, the committee will prioritize the eligible properties into two groups. Group A are those properties that receive the highest priority. They significantly further the goals of the program and may be eligible for matching funds or within the Volusia Forever project area. Group B properties are important, but not the highest priority based on the evaluation criteria. Group A properties are forwarded to County Council for authorization to proceed with the acquisition process. County Council may move a property from one group to another, but may not add a property to the ranking group that has not first been determined eligible by the committee. Once the properties are ranked onto the Group A list, there's a final acquisition process. The Group A properties shall be pursued for acquisition by completing the following: a contract with a willing seller, a boundary survey, a title and encumbrance survey, written appraisals, which consist of one appraisal for properties that are valued between $100,000 and $500,000, and two for properties with values greater than $500,000. Also completed are environmental audits, either a phase 1 or phase 2 audit as necessary, a deed or an easement, approval by the County Council, and then the real estate closing. This graphic depicts the process of Volusia Forever acquisition. At the top of the page, the Volusia Forever staff solicits willing sellers, that is, those property owners who are interested in having Volusia Forever purchase their property for conservation. Next, the Volusia Forever Advisory Committee recommends lands for acquisition based on the established criteria. The County Council then approves or modifies those committee recommendations. The land acquisition staff negotiates purchases, and then the land management staff manages that land in perpetuity. Also included in the existing Volusia Forever program is the small lot acquisition program. The Volusia Forever resolutions authorize the acquisition of small lots. That program supplements the county's efforts in acquiring environmentally sensitive lands in antiquated subdivisions. The lots are small with limited or no physical access or infrastructure. The goal is to assemble contiguous small lots into ecologically significant tracts. For small lots, the acquisition procedures are modified. No survey, appraisal, or environmental assessment is required, and only a limited title search and an affidavit from the owner stating there are no known pollutants is required. Through this program, Volusia Forever has spent over $1.6 million since 2001 to acquire a total of 2,519 acres. One important portion of the Volusia Forever program is the land management set-aside. In the program from 2000 to 2020, 10% of the appropriated funds of the program were set aside to ensure that there is adequate funding for public access, land management, and improvements thereon of lands purchased under Volusia Forever, as well as the 1986 referendum and other lands purchased for conservation purposes. You'll hear more about the land management set-aside in the financing section of this presentation.
Good evening. I'm Tim Bailey, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Director. I'm responsible for the land management on the conservation lands. responsible for management, enhancement, and restoration of approximately 41,000 acres. Ecologically sensitive management focuses on restoration, conservation, education, and research opportunities for the wise public utilization of natural lands. Land management activities. These include habitat maintenance and restoration, which includes prescribed fire, sustainable forestry, which promotes conservation and management practices which are environmentally, socially, and economically sustainable and which generate and maintain benefits for present and future generations. Plant and animal monitoring, which includes exotic species control, Jay-Watch, and Rugel's Pawpaw Roundup. Recreation, public access, and education. These include hiking, biking, horseback riding, and primitive camping are allowed on most conservation properties. There are 46 miles of trails and 5 campsites. Hunting is allowed on the Lake George Forest and Wildlife Management Area and is administered by the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission as part of a larger 35,380 acre wildlife management area. Interpretive trail signage, guided tours, educational programs, and Boy Scout project.
I am Ryan Osowski, Chief Financial Officer for Volusia County, and I'm here to go over some of the financial aspects of the Forever program. First, I'd like to cover the revenue estimates and the current balances that are on hand from the current Volusia Forever program. For the new Volusia Forever 2020 ballot elected program, based off of current property values, we approximate that the 0.2 mills levied will collect $7.65 million for fiscal year 2022. Estimated revenues of approximately $179 million will be collected over the 20 years that this program will be in place. And that was based off of regression modeling on historical property values for the 20 years. There are several different ways that you could look at modeling property tax revenues, especially when you're forecasting over such a long period of time. However, this is a down the middle approach at the $179 million number. The current balances for the Forever 2000 program that are on hand by the county include a $726,711 reserve for acquisition and a $12.7 million reserve for land management. Next, I'd like to go over the land management set aside. Currently, approximately $1.2 million is spent each year for land management expenses from the Forever program. The funds that are potentially available to cover future land management expenditures include a set aside from the ad valorem tax, interest revenues, hunting leases and timber sales, and the Forever 2000 fund balance. As mentioned on the previous slide, the $12.7 million reserved for land management. A potential set aside of 10 to 15% has been discussed, and the amounts of the 10% and 15% set aside would be $765,000 for 10% or $1.1 million for 15%. Adding that to the interest, hunting leases, timber sales, and the fund balance would be your funding sources for land management. Now I'm going to turn to the land acquisition financing piece of the Forever program. When the voters approved the Volusia Forever program, a $60 million bonding authority was also approved. This $60 million bond would give the county immediate cash flow, but result in annual debt service of approximately $4.2 million per year for the 20-year life of the program at an estimated average interest rate of 3.4%. In addition to limited general obligation bonds, the county also has the potential for other credit mechanisms, such as revenue bonds. However, both limited general obligation and revenue bonds would be subject to the federal government's restrictions on tax-exempt debt. As an issuer of tax-exempt debt, we have to obey what the IRS views as a potential for overburdening the tax-exempt bond market. Basically, the IRS doesn't want you to issue debt until you actually need it and have a plan for spending it. It would not be advisable to take out debt just to have the money on hand to be able to say that we are ready to purchase. Instead, purchases should be lined up ahead of time, and then the financing should be determined. This is because the county has the appropriate cash flow to make those purchases and then get the financing after the fact. The financing time frame is approximately 3 months, depending on what type of financing and the amount of the financing. But in that meantime, between the purchase and the time that the financing is acquired, we have sufficient cash flow and the potential to borrow from the land management fund balance in order to make any purchases that are recommended to be made from this program. Thank you for listening to the financing portion of the Volusia Forever program.
Okay, that is the end of the video presentation. So now we come to the most important part of the evening, and that is comments from the public on the Volusia Forever program and how you would like to see it carried over as we start the next 20 years of the program. So if you would like to speak and have not filled out a blue form on the table here, please do so before you leave. And Ms. Presley will call you up. Those of you who are online, we are going to listen to the folks that are in the audience here first, and then we will move to anyone that's online. So do we have names, please?
Amy Mizuni.
Sorry.
Hi, I'm Amy Munizzi with the DeLeon Springs Community Association. We learned about your listening sessions, and at our May meeting, we just asked people if they had any particular input they wanted to provide. And we had a long discussion about it. They had some good suggestions. They directed me to write a letter to you, and we did that, and hopefully you've received it. And then they asked that I would follow up just at a meeting to see if you received the letter and if you had any questions or comments about our concerns.
We will put the letter with all of the other information that we've gathered during these listening sessions, and then it is all compiled and we look at it all together.
All right,
Okay.
great. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone else in person that would like to speak? Online, we have Libby Levat. Give me one second. Libby, you can unmute yourself.
I'm trying. You got me?
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am.
Sorry about that. Hello. Hi, it's Libby Levat, Edgewater, Florida. Do I need to give my address?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So I have actually spoken to you guys in at the last listening session. I don't know if you remember me pointing out the property available in the wildlife corridor out in the Farmton area. I shouldn't say Farmton specifically because there are a lot of property owners, adjacent cities, and unincorporated Volusia County that all come into the mix. However, there has been a Wildlife Corridor Act that has been established in 2021. I encourage all of you to become familiar with it. The state has made it very clear that they would like to enlarge this wildlife corridor, and there are several maps available from USGS and from the Wildlife Corridor Act that you can get online, so I won't belabor you with that, but do your own investigation of that, because it identifies areas that are already in conservation, and then it identifies areas that are available and great opportunity zones, and those are identified by all of the criteria that you've already described. So if you look at that, it kind of cuts to the chase and helps you look on the map to identify what we're going to place at a priority. I think it's very clear when we looked at those maps recently, and that was yesterday morning, I think, maybe the day before. It's kind of getting a little crazy this week, but anyway, so we looked at these maps, and it's really hard to overlay these maps, right, with DEP and projects and the property appraiser and who owns what, but we've really dug deep to look westward in Volusia County and in northeast Volusia County near the Loop. And I want to draw your attention to that because I think that's something that's been that everybody thinks the plans are done, and just be clear, nothing is done. Restoration is requesting a DRI resend, and that's a contract. I won't get into the law of it, but that's a contract that preserves that area into perpetuity to the north side of 442, leading into that development. If they rescind that DRI, development's going to go full steam ahead, and we're going to lose an opportunity to protect that corridor. I am asking that we object to the rescinding of that DRI as the last protection, and that this is prime real estate for scrub jays, black bears, panthers, and it must be prioritized. You have a priority A-B map. I don't believe it's been updated recently. I would like to see that updated with the new data. There is new data. There's no new LIDAR. LIDAR is radar from the sky to the ground, and we haven't updated that in over 10 years. We know through development that permanent changes have occurred in the hydrology and the elevations, and they will continue to occur. And unless proper projections are made, we may suffer similar consequences that our sistering and neighboring communities have suffered, and some so far as to the south. We really are at a precipice here to save that property. And just remember, the only thing we can do right now to protect restoration is to buy it. It's not for sale, I don't think, but the only thing I can see to truly protect restoration is to buy it. I am looking for Volusia Forever funds and Florida Forever funds to purchase that property, and I hope you will put it on high priority for your list, as well as all of the identified habitats in that area. And they're well identified, and I look forward to an opportunity of sharing those maps with you firsthand. If you have any questions, I'm available.
Okay, thank you. Ginger, do you want to go over with her the process of how a landowner contacts you, or when that should happen?
I'm Ginger Adair, Environmental Management Director. So under the existing program and presumably under the continuation, this is a willing seller program. So once all of the criteria are established and the council adopts resolutions that lay out the program parameters, the staff would put out a call to landowners who are interested in participating in the program. And then those landowners would submit a small application, which staff would then review and bring to this committee to see if it meets the criteria that are set. Typically, it's not been the staff's role to go out and seek specific properties. It's all based on people who are interested in selling, reaching out to the program.
Does that help you, ma'am?
It does, actually, and I do have willing sellers, so I think we're at that conversation now, so we're ready to have it. I'm really excited about it.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Do we have anyone else online?
Derek LaMontagne, if you would like to unmute yourself, you should be able to now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Well, I just want to thank the speakers, first of all. And yeah, just say I agree with Libby's points that we should be definitely saving the habitat corridors, especially around Farmington and those areas southwest part of our county that might be lost soon if we don't save them. So I do support, of course, that those efforts. And also just want to say there was another, I was approached by another suggestion, I guess, of lands that we'll be looking to save, and I think the Water Management District was looking into saving an area called the DeBerry Bayou. I think that's in the southwest part of the county as well. So just want to say I support all of those protection areas, whether they be for water management or just habitat protection or just any other great protection usage. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say, and just want to thank everybody and for their comments, and look forward to continuing with this program, and thank you all.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Anyone else, Ms. Presley?
I
We
have
have one
one more. Oh, We have one more. Rebecca Perry, you should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, yes, this is Rebecca Perry with.
Okay, we can hear you. You want to go ahead, please?
Yes, thank you. I was trying to unmute myself, but it didn't work. Yes, I'm Rebecca Perry. I'm with the North Florida Land Trust. We are a 501c3 conservation organization dedicated to protecting agricultural, natural, and historic resources in North Florida. And we supported the Volusia Forever and ECHO programs as they were going through the referendum. And so I've been listening to the session here tonight, and I just wanted to bring up one aspect that may be overlooked by the ranking criteria, and that is farmlands. Now, farmlands were added to the language that was approved in November. And there are approximately 100,000 acres of unprotected agricultural lands in Volusia County. And the thing about agricultural lands is that if farmers are having trouble making ends meet on those lands, they can be the first ones to be developed. So they're really under immediate threat of conversion to development. And of course, they're extremely important for food, fiber, and ecosystem services that they provide. So once those lands are gone and they have become rooftops, then we're dealing with other environmental issues like septic tanks, runoff, etc. So looking at the criteria, if you are looking at conservation easements where you need 5 of the criteria for a farmland conservation easement, I'm afraid that some good properties that are offered may not qualify under the current criteria. So I would suggest that the committee and the staff look at that and see how that might be adjusted. You could even do a set aside similar to the small lot acquisitions, where you look at only conservation easements for farmlands, so that you're kind of comparing apples to apples. And then another thing with these types of lands, you have a really good opportunity to leverage federal dollars through the Farm Bill program. There are programs that can be brought down to Volusia County that can match your dollars 50-50 to protect farmland. So I just wanted to mention that, and that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments. You still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
You have specific changes to the criteria, specific language? We would love to see that.
Okay, great. Well, I can do that. I can provide a letter. One of the things I have recommended is that you look at the Rural and Family Lands Protection Program, and I can provide that in my comments as well. So there's definitely some options. The other thing is that the federal programs, they also have ranking criteria for those. So if you wanted to model off of one of those so that you could match easily those funding sources, that would be a good idea. So absolutely, I will prepare something and get it over to you guys.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else online, Sarah?
If anyone else online would like to speak, please raise your hand now. Steve Crump, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hey, this is Steve Crump. Talking about the farmlands, I remember there's being 3 special exception categories, and I'm wondering if farmlands should be a 4th special exception or exemption. I forget how that was termed.
Okay, Ginger, I'm sorry. Did you want to on the mic, please?
Steve, are you referring to the enhancement criteria?
Yeah, that's the word, enhancement criteria. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Okay, so one more time, sir, your suggestion or your question is whether farmland should be added to the enhancement criteria or a new enhancement criteria made for farmland?
Well, that's what I'm considering. I'm just throwing it out there as as a possible way to address farmlands and forest lands. It's just another way to think about it. And Miss Perry's suggestion of a set aside is another very good way to do it.
Okay, yeah, this is a new category for us, of course, the farmland. So again, any ideas that you have or suggestions that you have, if you could get them in writing and get them into us, that would be greatly appreciated. Anything else, sir?
No, this is Steve Crump, your
Got
fellow
it.
committee
Okay.
member.
Sorry. Thank you, Ginger. Okay, thanks, Steve.
You're welcome.
Melissa, did you want to speak? Is there anyone else that would like to speak? Please raise your hand. Melissa, you should be unmuted. Can you unmute yourself?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Sorry. Too many different platforms these days. Melissa Lammers, Ormond by the Sea. I just wanted to remind some of the people, some of the members of the advisory committee, I believe, I'm sure Ms. Van Dam was, they were part of a meeting last February or March when the previous Volusia Forever Advisory Committee was brought back to talk about what had worked, what hadn't worked, what needed to be improved. And I think it's pretty clear from the video that you've prepared. I'm just adding another echo to it, pun intended, about the set aside for the land management piece. There seemed to be quite a bit of consensus among previous staff and the previous committee, and that did need to be increased to 15%, because we will all remember that the ballot language talks about being stewards of the land in perpetuity. So that's just my parting 2 cents on it, just to remind folks that were in the room that day. I think Derek might have been there as well, about that discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And that is one of the things that we will be talking about. So we appreciate your comments.
Derek, you can unmute yourself.
Yes,
Derek.
thank you. This is Derek LaMontagne again, just wanting to say, I guess it's more of a question for the staff, if we will kind of be going over point by point each of the criteria to make sure, you know, they're worded exactly as we want, like at our next meeting, or if that will just be over the next few kind of months and meetings, or if there's actually one time, like before we meet with the county council next, is that kind of we're finalizing our recommendations at our next one? Because if that's the case, then, you know, we'd want to, there's been a lot of mention over the last few listening sessions about, you know, suggestions and, you know, ways to, you know, slightly improve them. I think Melissa was, well, that was a separate topic, but basically, I know Mr. Crump was just making those suggestions as well. So just want to know if that is kind of the plan, or anyone else on the committee, if that's how they understand it, that we will kind of be, when we'll be finalizing it, and when, if we want to, you know, add a few words here or there, or, you know, will we be going point by point through it next time? And so any kind of guidance or discussion, just want to kind of plan ahead, I suppose.
Okay, that is one of the things we were going to speak of. Do you want to address it now, or? Okay.
I can if you'd like. So our thought, and we're looking for your direction though, was that we would bring back all the criteria and try and match it with some of the comments that were brought up. So if there's anything that matches the criteria as you go through, giving you the chance to discuss it. So I can speak more clearly about ECHO. For ECHO, for example, they were talking about they wanted nonprofits to have match. Well, a lot of people have said that, but that was already in there. So we're, you know, anything that's already in there, you need to say, yes, no, we don't want that. We want to change it however you want. So we thought we'd lay out some discussion points for you to work through, both on the criteria and on the process. Just because the process is in existence now, you may want to make some changes as to how we go about doing that. And then after you get through with all of those discussions, our hope is that you'll meet with council, make those presentations to council, staff would make them for you, and go from there. So that's what we're anticipating happening. I know several people have suggested, since our next meeting is not scheduled until June 25th, and that's well over a month from now, there's been a request to see if you all are interested in meeting prior to then, since you're supposed to go back to council sometime in August. So your call, we can talk about that tonight. We can do a meeting poll and send it out to you all and let you all do that. But so we're seeking your direction. That's what we anticipated that you would want to do, is to go through all the criteria and the procedures that we would follow under the old program and see what lines up and what doesn't.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if it would be you or someone else, but pertaining to connectivity, since it's willing sellers, out of sheer curiosity, are there properties that have been on this list for the entire length of forever that the county's interested in, that have been waited on for connectivity, but they've never become available? There's never been a willing seller? Because I'm wondering about that, about the length of times on some of these.
So I think I can answer that. On the AB list, which hopefully you remember when we talked about the district property, I showed the AB list. So for instance, the Volusia Conservation Corridor is at the top of the list, and that's the entire corridor. So there are certainly parcels within that corridor that we have not acquired because the sellers weren't willing. So, and that's why the district one is so interesting, because that's been on the list since the beginning, basically, and now those owners are willing. Otherwise, other than those sort of generic conservation corridor, anything that's on the list was something that was submitted by the owner for consideration. So, but just because they were on the list doesn't mean that they ever got purchased. You know, maybe there wasn't enough money for that, or maybe you know, the seller wanted more than the appraisals showed they were worth. So there are certainly still properties on the last active A list that we did not acquire. And those owners, you know, may be wanting to come back under the new program or may not. I can't really answer that. But other than the corridor, anything on the list was an owner who was willing to sell at the time they made application. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, kind of and kind of not.
Okay.
Are some, I'm asking, have some been on there for, well, possibly like 20 years since the beginning? I'm just asking.
I don't know for sure. Certainly there are some that have been on there since 2008, which was the last A list that was approved. And at least one of those has reached out once the referendum passed and said, hey, I'm out here and I'm still interested. So those have been on there for a number of years because there was no money to acquire. But I can't answer. I can go back and check and get back to you if somebody'd been on the list, say, since 2000 and
Right.
they never got purchased.
So from a connectivity standpoint, I mean, we hope they want to sell, right?
Exactly. And that's part of how, you know, if somebody is interested and they submit their property, obviously the criteria right now emphasize that connectivity. So that's how a willing seller might make it to the A list, because they are connected. Another seller might have a great piece of property and it's not connected, but it meets, you know, a number of the other criteria. So really, we're sort of at the mercy of people who are interested in selling. You know, we don't use eminent domain or, you know, try to pressure people into selling or anything like that. So partly, it really is, you know, at whatever comes in the door, then we get to review that to the criteria that you all decide on. But I'll go back and look and see about, you know, the lists from the beginning and see if properties were on there year after year after year after year and maybe never got purchased. So what Clay was pointing out, that the way that the rules were written was you could move a property could move from the B list to the A list if it became a higher priority. And how that could happen is if other purchases now made that prior property connected. I can't speak to whether that actually ever happened, but it certainly would be possible.
Do we know the date for sure of when we will be addressing county council? I just want to make sure we have time for more than one meeting in case if we need more than one meeting.
Yes, so right now the scheduled joint meeting with the council and this committee is July 13th. The meeting for you all to discuss all of these recommendations, all of the public input, and come up with your ideas is June 25th, right? So there's not a whole lot of time between June 25th and July 13th. So that was why maybe if it works for you all and you want to meet earlier in June, then we could have an earlier meeting. Save that date of the 25th in case you don't get all your work done in one meeting. And if you do get it all done earlier in June, then we don't have to meet on the 25th. But completely up to you whether you want to consider that at all.
Okay, how does everyone else feel? To me, that sounds like the wiser way to do it, to make sure that we've got time for at least one more meeting before we get together with
I just
council.
want to say I've been booking all of my travel around the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And so now we're so close
Right.
and I'm booking flights.
Right.
And so I've already booked a trip in June that I specifically booked to work around anything that we did.
Completely
And
understand. If that doesn't work, it's not.
I'm not saying
an
I
issue with
can't
staff,
meet, but I'm just letting everyone know that I've booked a trip. As a matter of fact, I've booked 3 trips and I booked them around every single thing we've done. And I don't want to miss a meeting and I don't want to be counted absent at this point. And I attended every single listening session in person.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'm not complaining, but I'm just explaining that when you book flights and you book them this closely, it is virtually impossible.
Would it be possible for you to check your schedule and let Ginger and Donna know when you might be available so that if we can make it work, that we have a quorum for everyone?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm gone the 14th through the 18th. It's a Monday through Friday of June. And in July, it would be it's at the end of July because I booked it around the council meeting so that I could attend without missing meetings.
Yeah, and we're not trying to change things around here. The way I'm looking at it is if we don't have enough time in one meeting, then we're pretty cramped to get another meeting in there before we get together with council. And not only are we cramped, but staff is cramped to get our thoughts together. So that's why I was wondering.
I understand. I do.
Okay.
And I've come to every meeting and I don't plan on missing. And I'm just letting you know that I'm putting forth a real effort here to try to book anything. And I'm not a person who travels a lot, but after a year of COVID and staying home, I need a break.
Yeah, no, understand that. And if you can get dates, then the rest of us can look and see if we can, come up with the date that works for everyone. Is that?
So you're going to be out the 14th through the 18th. What are the June 4th and June 11th? Because it was a Friday. Do you all happen to have your calendars handy? John, I know you're traveling some too, right? Okay. How does that look for you, Suzanne? 4th and the 11th look good for you? At this point, okay. Derek Orber, how does that look for you? Yes, sir. Okay. Mr. Peasy? Wanda?
June 4 does not work for me, but June 11 does.
Okay. So Derek Montaigne, I know you're still probably online.
Yes, can you hear me? Yes,
Yes.
I just want to say, no, I don't think we should have a meeting before the 25th. I think the 25th should be the meeting. If we need one, we'll meet after that. But also in the meantime, we should be, we could be sent the draft from the staff if they have, the suggestions of what we'll be talking about. I want to be working, reading any material that we'll be sending. I mean, I don't see how additional meeting would help, especially beforehand, especially when, yes, I did plan an earlier vacation for the earlier half of June because they want to miss the 25th meeting. And so, no, I mean, just personally, that's one reason. But the main reason is, no, I don't think we need an additional meeting. If we can talk to the council and just actually get their input. I don't personally want to not have their views as well. So I think our second meeting to discuss it can be with them. And I mean, again, I didn't see any reason that we have to be super duper finalized beforehand, before meeting with them. I want to meet with them as part of the process, not as like, oh, we already finished everything. But that's, again, just my view. So again, I think that I hope you understand that. Thank you.
So Wanda, what was your, oh, okay, the 11th would be the only one that would work for you.
Would work for me, yes. And then is Mr. Crump still on? Is Steve still on?
Steve Crump, are you still online as well?
Yeah, the 4th or the 11th is good for me.
Okay, so we'll check with Marianne Connors as well. And if the 11th works for her, we'll schedule it. Mr. LaMontagne, sorry, I apologize.
Yeah.
I'm looking at a calendar. Here's the other thing I want to say, and we'll talk about absences because there's been some changes in how we're going to address that. If you cannot attend, it would count as an absence. We at the county council yesterday, and you're going to get an email with making sure that we're all on the same page. First thing tomorrow, it'll be sent out to you. The county legal department brought up the fact that there's a lot of work that both the Forever Board and the ECHO Board has to do this year. And to restrict, like all other advisory boards, to just 2 meetings missed is kind of hard on the members. You all have planned vacations, you have work conflicts, and this is a lot more meetings than you would have in a normal year. If you follow the same process, you might have 4 meetings, when you get the applications, and then maybe you'll meet again to discuss further. So the county attorney, Mr. Dyer, asked the council what their thoughts were, and they asked that we get back with you. So we're going to be sending you an email. We'll be sending one to ECHO as well that will lay out the possibility of going up to possibly 4 meetings during a year that you could miss, so that you would not be automatically kicked off after 2. Life happens, people get sick, they need to take their vacation. So you'll receive that. And then also there were a lot of questions about the last meeting that we had that was a joint meeting. That is now going to be considered one of the listening sessions, so that will not count against anybody's absenteeism. That's the way we originally thought. We got into some discussion, it changed, so no absences for anybody that missed that.
I want to thank you for that, because I know I brought it up. I appreciate you addressing it.
And we did, and so that's why that came out. So that's part of your email tomorrow too, but we thought it would go out today since it hasn't. Wanted to go ahead and tell you that in advance. So we'll have a poll. You won't be able to see anybody else's results, so you can say, no, keep it at 2, maybe 3, 4, and then the consensus of both groups, because it's going to be made for both, will go forward, and we'll take either an amended resolution or a new resolution. So we'll do a new one amending the old one for the absentee purposes, just to say how many you're allowed in a calendar year. But this fall is probably going to be pretty busy for you all. And I hope that we can complete everything in one meeting. But I think the council expects you to come with your recommendations, not that they would be final, but they want to hear that you all say, okay, here's the original criteria, here's some changes that we recommend to make. They're expecting that. So they'll probably give you their feedback, but they want you to come to them because you are their advisory committee. So they would like you all to make some recommendations to them on how you think you'd like to progress. They will say yes, no, maybe, or whatever. And then you can come back and finalize things, and we'll take it formally to council for adoption. So that's how the process would work. If we can get it done in one meeting, great. But just in case, we really think we should have a backup meeting in place. So I appreciate your being willing to do that.
I am just double checking that neither one of the meetings is getting canceled that we already had scheduled.
We have,
I'm not talking about the 11th, but the 25th,
right,
and
the 13th.
Yes.
Not to my knowledge. Now, I can't promise the 13th won't be changed because that's actually a council decision on whether or not they have that, but that is the intent at this time. I'd like to promise you, say it's written in stone, but
I scheduled around that.
Understood. Yeah, ECHO's going to be doing the same thing. They're going to be asking for a special meeting as well for their joint workshop as well. you don't have to attend that, but just letting you know that, they only have one regular council meeting in July. So that's part of the challenge in scheduling. So, okay.
Okay, anything else from staff first, and then we'll go to members? Nothing else? Okay,
Wanda, we have someone online who has raised their hand. Would you like to continue public participation or?
Yes,
Go ahead, Ms. Levat.
I just have a few things to say. So welcome to summer after COVID, right? So everybody needs a vacation, including our council, and that's why we have is that why we only have one meeting in July? I'm thinking maybe. But so yeah, everybody's needing a vacation, and we've all worked really hard to get to this place, and I respect that. And having said that, I just want to say I am all for more frequent meetings because we have a lot of work to do. And I'm ready to do those more frequent meetings, but I do want to respect everyone's summer. It has been a long, hard, how many months? I don't even know. It's definitely longer than 12. And I just know we all want to get out of town and have a good time and relax. And I hope that those who've said they want to do that can do that and come back with a fresh start, and remind them that they have an opportunity to attend via Zoom. But I also want to remind everyone that you can request to be excused for your absence so that it doesn't count against you. I'm not sure if no, you're saying no, Mr. Irvin. Okay, well, maybe you can explain that, because the way I understood it is the council could excuse absences. So if that's not the case, maybe you should explain that to them, since there are some new ones.
Who the hell is that?
I'll pause for a moment.
Sarah, who's that?
okay,
This is Russ Brown, Senior Assistant County Attorney. Sorry, I just popped this thing off. The absences are not excused on a individual basis from the advice of the council. It's an overall amount that committee members, based on what the council sets, as they're allowed to miss. So that's the rule. Does that make sense?
It does. And I do understand that, because if you have an absentee committee, you're not getting any work done. I absolutely understand that. And I actually don't think anybody here is going to miss 4 consecutive meetings. For instance, I'll just speak to our own mayor, which he's had his health issues. He had a really horrific accident last year, and he was out for maybe 4 or 5 months, and they were able to excuse it. I don't know that plays into it at all. I just want to make sure that we're considering all situations during this really complex time of COVID and health, and just trying to work through the summer and enjoy their families. That's all.
okay, and based on what we've heard now from both Donna and Mr. Brown, I think that we've got that covered, hopefully. So, okay, thank you.
I have one more question. When is the council meeting in July?
13.
The 13th, the day of, it says workshop, I thought. So is that the council meeting too? July 20th is the council meeting. Thank you.
The 13th was coordinated through the council to try and come up with a date, because we knew that this would take an extensive amount of dialogue between the members of the advisory committee and the council. So there was a separate date established outside of the normal meeting date. There is only one meeting that month, and it is July 20th.
Okay. Board members, okay.
Yes, I got one question. This might be to staff and could be to the whole committee, but you had talked about the ranking criteria and that we had the corridor, anything in that corridor was number 1, and anything in that was going, and the rest were individual projects that people had either offered or expressed interest in. My question is, has the staff or anybody else identified other environmentally sensitive properties in Volusia County that they would treat similar to what they treat with the wildlife corridor, i.e. Indian River Lagoon, drainage issues down there, or that property, spring head protection properties, where things that would show up in this area, we would say, hey, that automatically is something that we want to look at. So are we going anywhere with any other properties?
Certainly the staff has ideas about areas that might be priorities. And we could present those at your meeting either on the 11th or the 25th, whenever it ends up being. That's not in the existing program. In the existing program, it really is those state identified corridors. So the Volusia Conservation Corridor has been identified by the state as a priority, and that's why it's also a priority of Volusia County. Partly because it's a good idea, partly because there were matching funds available. So there are certainly other areas. I think that priority focus areas of springs are really important. You know, maybe you want to look at anything that has a basin management action plan, so that maybe there are properties that could be acquired that would facilitate water quality improvements, right? By keeping it out of development or whatever. I mean, I think there are a lot of ideas that you all could have, and we'd be happy to share with you. And we talked about this a little bit, the mapping exercise, right? So we have all of this data. We can show you where where the wetlands are. We can show you where the highest recharge areas are. We can show you the areas that are vulnerable to sea level rise based on our adopted sea level rise predictions. We can show you where the other conservation lands are, so you can see where there are gaps. You know, the staff did a very basic gap analysis, just looking at the map and saying, you know, here we've got a great corridor and here we've got a great corridor, but there's a chunk missing. So we can do all of that with you at your meeting if you would find that helpful. You know, maybe a presentation at the beginning or at whatever point to kind of go through that exercise, just so that you can see what information we have available. And then if you all collectively think that it's important to protect springs priority focus areas or the Indian River Lagoon or Mosquito Lagoon, then you can move that recommendation forward to the council. Does that get where you're going there? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it just seems like there are going to be questions come up when we meet that staff is probably going to have to research and get back to us. I don't think we can expect them to be able to answer all of our questions that we throw at them at one meeting. So.
And we'll certainly try to be prepared, right? You've given us some clues about what you're interested in. And so, you know, we can be prepared to bring up all of those GIS layers and show you, you know, anything in our mapping arsenal. And we can show you that really rough gap analysis that we did. But anything like that you want to talk about at your meeting, let us know that so that we can be ready and we can pop it up on the screen and have a discussion.
Okay, John, did you have?
Clay's up.
Yeah, Ginger, one more thing. Is the Tomoka River impaired currently?
The Tomoka River is impaired. Almost all of the water bodies in Volusia County are impaired. Tomoka has a total maximum daily load established, which is
Nutrient?
Yes.
Or bacteria?
Both. There's multiple segments of the Tomoka, and they're impaired for different things. There is not a basin management action plan on the Tomoka River, but it certainly is impaired, like the Halifax, like the Mosquito Lagoon, like Spruce Creek, like the St. Johns River and all the springs. So
yeah, gotcha.
Don, excuse me real quick. Don and I were realizing that it is important that y'all get with us and let us know what you want us to address. And so it is appropriate for each of the individual members to email Sarah Presley if you have specific topics you want addressed in the June meeting, or if you have specific recommendations you would want to bring up. Please email them individually to Sarah. Do not copy everybody on that. So then that way what Sarah can do is compile all that, and we can make sure that when we get in June, assuming we do the two meetings at the 11th and the 25th, we have a good steady idea of what the program's going to be and can do a good job of time management to make sure we get through it in an effective way. All right. The goal is this. The goal is this. We go through the 11th and the 25th. At that point, we're going to have all of y'all's recommendations. That will be all compiled into basically a set report that would go to the council for that 13th agenda. That 13th is a workshop. So it's the time where the council members and y'all are all sitting at the table and discussing all of this. So what I would say is that we'll be there to help lead the discussion, but it's going to be you and the council making the determinations and debating the issues and coming up with what you feel is the appropriate method to go forward with it. We're really just kind of like dropping the puck in the middle and letting y'all go at it.
Okay, so to begin the meeting and to go over things that we discussed, is that something that staff is going to do or something that we do?
Yes, we will do the skeleton, and y'all will be able to fill out the rest of the body. Does that make sense?
Yep. Okay. Okay. All right. Derek, did you have anything?
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate Ginger's comment on the BMAPs and the need for them. That's the Basin Management Action Plan for our impaired waters of Volusia County. This is just something I want to let everyone know that I hope at some point we can get BMAPs for those impaired water bodies. They are kind of a state requirement, but as far as I understand it, the DEP is kind of waiting for entities like the counties and cities and other stakeholders to kind of push them to kind of put that on their priority list. So, I mean, once a BMAP is established, it will help us, with our priority, acquisitions in terms of knowing what is important. But it's kind of a free for all out there, in my opinion, that without these BMAPs that are a state requirement and more than 10 years overdue, that the state just refused to or just drop the ball on because of they're doing other things that we need them. So I do hope at some point that the county can work on that. But I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention because it does affect kind of what we're working on. And if there is such a BMAP, then Florida Forever might be able to get involved too, as well as partner with us, and we can get those matching funds and stuff. So I hope that our county can get those at some time soon. And I don't know if maybe in the future staff can let us know if there's anything that we can do or to help expedite that process, I guess. Thank you.
Okay. Derek Orberg?
Thank you, Wanda. No, nothing at this time. I appreciate it.
Okay. Suzanne, you all set?
Are we any closer, or is there any update on BMAPs in the Tomoka Basin, Tomoka area, river? Since Derek brought it up, I am asking.
No, we're not any closer. Technically, the DEP does these BMAPs on a 5-year cycle. They do the analysis on a 5-year cycle. And if a water body is considered impaired, they are supposed to then do the Basin Management Action Plan process. Like Mr. LaMontagne said, they are woefully behind. And then when the Aquifer and Springs Protection Act passed, the DEP was tasked with doing BMAPs on all of the 30 priority springs. And so I think, this is me thinking, I don't know this for sure, that that took some of the surface water BMAPs, they became less of a priority. They were under a statutory requirement to do all of those springs within 2 years. So that took a lot of staff away from the others. So that's a long way to say, no, as far as I know, we're not any further. I do check regularly with the DEP to see if we're moving forward for Halifax or Tomoka, and we're not.
Okay. All right. And Steve Crump, do you have anything else?
Oh, I just want to know, do we need a motion and a second to have a meeting on June 11th?
I think are we going to first check if we've got a quorum or? Okay, all right. We can certainly do that. Would you like to make a motion, or are you?
I don't think as a person listening online, I'm allowed to make a motion or vote, as I recall.
Okay, he can't make a motion or vote, okay.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we have an additional meeting on June 11th.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Can we talk about time?
I'm opposed, but I'm online.
Okay, All right. Suzanne, you want to talk about, we first probably have to find out what's available before, yeah.
Okay,
But if you want to tell us your preference on time, that when we're checking location, because if you say afternoon versus morning, that may make a difference. So go ahead and tell us your preference on time.
Okay, all right. Do we know now what would work best for all of us?
I'm better in the afternoon, but I can be flexible for the morning.
Okay,
I'm flexible.
Prefer afternoon.
I'm flexible.
and I'm flexible.
I do wish that we could get to a point where we were not scheduling meetings so close in time, if possible. I know that we are going to have meetings, but if we could come up with a schedule, it would be so much
That's
better.
what we normally do.
Yeah.
So for example, for Echo, they have their whole year planned out. They know when their workshops are going to be with potential applicants. They know when the grant meeting is going to be. They know the whole year. So that will be our plan
I understand.
once you get, and
I brought it up because,
absolutely.
again, Derek,
Mhm.
he works.
Sure.
And so I understand.
Absolutely. That will be our plan. As soon as we get through this meeting with council and you finalize things, we'll set a regular calendar and make sure that everybody's available for those dates and publish it out.
Yeah, there's no doubt that we're in an unusual time here trying to get ourselves geared up to get actually back into the program. So I'm not surprised at the number of meetings that we're needing to have over this. I just want to make sure that we get done what we need to do. So members of the public, either one of you ladies have anything that you want to address? No? Okay, all right. Anything else? All right then, meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.